Welcome to Pan-African Leadership Center. My name is Tashana Hanna, and I will be the host for this show on today. We are streaming live to Tunachike TV channel, United States of Africa, Japan platforms on Twitter via at Africa Republic, at Alkobali, and on LinkedIn Live. Today, we will be discussing youth and women inclusion in decision making. And we have a special guest today, Mita Mallick. And we also would like to thank our sponsors, Tunachike TV channel, for enabling today's session and current problems. We would like to invite Mita Mallick on for our discussion today. Is a seat at the table enough? Mita, are you there? We would like to welcome everyone for being a part on today.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I was waiting patiently backstage. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being a part. And so let's go ahead and get started. Could you tell us just a little bit about you? I know we have some questions for you to discuss on today, and just tell us your name and who you are briefly, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the discussion.
Yes, well, thank you all for having me. I'm Mita Mallick. I am a passionate storyteller who's always been focused on multicultural marketing. I'm a diversity and inclusion executive, and my most important job is being mom to Jay, who is 8, going on 18 in this pandemic, and Priya, who is 6, going on 16, and I am zooming in from Jersey City, New Jersey in the US. That's where I'm joining you all today.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And just a little more about Ms. Mallick. She's a corporate change maker with a track record of transforming businesses. She gives initiative ideas. A voice serves customers and communicates with purpose. She currently is the head of inclusion, equity, and impact at Carter, and formerly was the head of inclusion and cross-culture marketing of Unilever. She has an extensive career. She's a mom, like she said. And I want to go ahead back a little bit, because sometimes our past and things that we've been through develop who we are today. And so just to kind of get started, I would like for you to speak on your childhood, your youth, because once again, we are speaking about youth and women in inclusion. And sometimes youth can feel disconnected or not included in the decision making. And I know for you, you had some struggles and some things that you went through personally. But how, can you tell us a little bit about that, and then how it developed you to who you are today?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. It all starts with, I'm the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. My younger brother and I were born and raised in the United States outside of Boston. And I was the funny looking, dark skinned girl with a long, funny looking braid whose parents spoke funny English until it wasn't funny anymore. And I was bullied a lot, both verbally and physically, by my peers. And they let me know every single day I didn't belong. And many things happened over the years, from having racial slurs painted in front of our driveway, names that I didn't know actually what the meaning of was until I was older, having spitballs and things thrown at me, having trash thrown at me at lunch. And it really escalated my freshman year of high school in 9th grade, when two white boys who had been bullying me throughout the year decided that day in Intro to Physical Science lab class that they would set my hair on fire. And that's what they chose to do. They were behind me and they were lighting matches and they landed in my long braid. And my lab partner, who had not spoken to me for probably 7 weeks, had all of a sudden said to me, "Oh my God, your hair is on fire." And so the damage, of course, my hair today is fine, but something like that, the damage that it does to your psyche, it stays with you. And that was actually the first time that I saw advocacy at play, because other than my parents and my nuclear family, no one had stood up for me. This is what's happening in our corporations as well. No one had stood up for me, not law enforcement, not teachers, not other parents, when they saw these things happening. And it was the first time my guidance counselor that day, who was also the track coach, stood up for me and forced me to join the track team. And so I still run to this day. But sports is a great equalizer. And all of a sudden, when you're on the field, you are treated as equal to everyone else, because it's just, based on your talent and at that time, how fast I could run. And so I'll pause there, but this is why this work is so important to me. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they don't belong and that they're excluded from their own communities, because we all deserve that. We all deserve to feel like we belong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that. I do apologize on behalf of the people who mistreated you, but I feel that if we never go through anything, we won't know how to begin.
Absolutely.
We won't know what our whole purpose is. And so you grew up as a brown girl, and I can imagine that you faced more challenges than what we're able to share on today. But what would you say to that young woman if she asks you, "Do I belong?"
Yes, absolutely, you belong. And don't let anyone else define your value. And that's what I did for too many years of my life. Like I let the bullies define my value. I let others take my voice from me. So don't let anyone define your value. And what's amazing about even today that I'm sitting here from the US talking to you all, and that there are people tuning in from around the world, that's our global world now. And so I think if there's been a lot of grief and loss in this pandemic, but there's also been a lot of connection and community. And so you can now find your community and go find it, go build it. We also have to find and build places where we belong if we're not being invited to have a seat at the table, which I know we're going to be talking about.
Yes. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of times we're waiting to be brought to the table, and we're waiting for somebody to give us an opportunity. And just for myself, I was never given the opportunity. So I made the opportunity for myself and for other, single moms to come aboard and just show that we do still have a voice, no matter, what our situation or what we're going through, no matter, no matter what people say, we still have a place in the earth, and we still have things that we should do and bring our other sisters along. How can women find their voice when they are silenced? As you know, Africa is still a literacy is still run by literacy, and women's voices can be silenced. How can they find their voice when they are silenced and aren't able to really speak up for themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just from personal experience, I'll say when people have taken your voice away from you for so long, it's even hard to speak. And people will be surprised today as they hear me speaking and contributing to things that wasn't who I was. And my mom and younger brother can attest that I was painfully shy. That's different than being introverted, painfully shy growing up. And so part of what my journey has been is actually practice using my voice. And so, for example, in a corporate setting, making sure that if I'm showing up, that I'm the first one to ask a question, right? Because if I can be the first one to speak, there's always a pause when someone presents. This will happen here today. Are there any questions? And everyone just sort of sits there silently. I encourage you to be the first one to ask the question, to use your voice. And for me, it's been about practicing my voice and the sound of my voice over and over again, because I can remember being in spaces and places where I'd always be sitting in the corner. I didn't want people to look at me. I didn't want to be seen, because I had been made to feel I wasn't worthy.
Yeah.
wasn't worthy of being seen and wasn't worthy of using my voice. So I would say practice using your voice. And then the other piece that's important is find allies who will support you. Find individuals who will support you in using your voice and will help lift and amplify your voice. And so when I go back to that um, horrible incident that happened to me in high school, where I had bullies set my hair on fire, the guidance counselor was one of the first ones in the school system who stood up for me, and not only stood up for me and helped get the bullies suspended, he also said to me, I want you to join the team. I want you to join the track team. I know you're fast. I've seen you run in gym class, so you're joining. Wasn't even given a choice, right? And so that's also what I would say is it's really important to build cross-cultural bridges, relationships, and find people who will help amplify your voice and also stand up for you when you have something that you want to say.
So someone in the comments mentioned that the women, they're not able to actually speak their voice because the men won't let them. So are you saying that in conjunction with, with that, they should find a tribe or find people who will speak for them? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. I think also, what is allyship? Allyship is about you are standing up for individuals who have been marginalized, right? And an ally generally has more power than the person who is not able to use their voice. So one of the things I've seen in my career that I would actually use as an analogy is find individuals, like if you're not able to use your voice and you don't feel safe using it, find people who will support you and will amplify your message and your voice, right? I also think there is power in number and in community. So as we've all seen things happening in social media, there's a tipping point. One person is silenced, two people are silenced, 3, 4, 5. How many people are you going to silence? How many, right? And I do think there's a tipping point, and then there is a lot of power in numbers when a number of people are coming forward and saying the same thing.
I agree with that, because as we've seen with, George Floyd and numerous African Americans being murdered by the police, Black Lives Matters came together, their voice was heard. There is some change gradually being made, and even with women's rights and all of that we face here in America, we've come together and used our voice in that way. Even me, I'm not a part of the women's movement, but I'm a woman, and I voice my opinion in a way to someone who's higher than me. So I do agree with that. But we're going to move on. So what kind of strategy would be helpful to motivate the private sector to engage youth and women in business development plan or strategy?
I think one of the things I've seen done really successfully is, the power of the wallet. And so many corporations have supplier diversity programs. And so we have one at Carta. I led one at Unilever. And it's really thinking about who are you going to write that check to? Many corporations will have the same 7 relationships. They go to the same 7 people to get things done, whether it's hosting a conference, whether it's making a video, whether it's who actually makes the cartons of a product. And so one of the ways I think corporations can really help engage youth and women in particular is to help support businesses that they're starting. And there's especially, I would say, globally and from a US perspective, entrepreneurship continues to be on the rise. And so I'm always proud when at Carta, we can be someone's first customer, right? Like to be someone's first customer, just think about that. If anyone here is from a corporation listening to this, that is game changing if you're somebody's first customer. If I'm someone's first customer, then that's going to help them get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, dozen more customers. And so I think that's really important. I think the other way that corporations the private sector can really be helping is when you think of the talent pipeline, and whether it's through internships, mentorship programs, exposing youth to careers they may not have thought were possible, because if you can see it, you can be it. And so getting individuals into corporations to intern or shadow or to understand what the job and career is, I think is instrumental.
Would there be an incentive for the private sector to engage youth, women, gender, and social have a social inclusion strategy? Is there an incentive to that, or is it just something that they should already have in place?
I mean, absolutely. I'll convince anyone who's listening that inclusion is a driver of the business. When we just look from a US perspective, and then you can think globally, the demographics are shifting so quickly. So if you're in a corporation and you're not seeing growth, you're not growing wherever you're sitting. I will challenge you to think about, what are your products and services? Who are you selling to and why? And who are you excluding? In the US alone, Nielsen is just one source. We know that the spending power of the multicultural consumer is over $3.2 billion. That's incredible. And so I always say, nothing for us without us. You can't be serving authentically communities with purpose if you don't have anyone who represents that community you want to serve at the table. It just doesn't work, right? And you also need multiple voices. You just can't have me at the table and say, oh, Mita speaks for all brown women. That's also tokenistic. I don't speak for all brown women. I only have one perspective. And so that's why I think it's such a driver of innovation and business growth, inclusion. And so anyone who right now is not thinking about a multicultural strategy, does not have anyone focused on thinking about inclusion at their corporations, I'll be hard pressed to think about, what your success is going to look like in 10 years, because your competitors might have outpaced you.
Absolutely. And so do you think that COVID-19 has put a halt on these issues of inclusion and diversity where you're from, or has it become a global impact?
I think that, COVID-19 has impacted inclusion in a lot of ways because, if you think about it from an equity perspective, we have seen the inequities in the pandemic. I am sitting here from the privilege from my home. I am vaccinated, and I honor and give great thanks to all of our frontline workers who are out there who don't have that same privilege. I also have lost a number of family members in India due to the pandemic, and now that we see Delta surging. So we see all of the ways in which the pandemic and COVID-19 have shown us the cracks in the foundation of our communities. And at the same time, inclusion, the pandemic has brought many of us closer together, albeit through screens. I likely would have not been invited to do this in this way. You might not be hosting in this way today if it wasn't for the pandemic. And wow, we all feel closer together. And I've met so many amazing people. I love LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I think it's as my friend Callie Schweitzer says, who works at LinkedIn, a platform of generosity. And so in that way, we've actually brought people closer together. And especially from a corporate perspective, it's leveled the playing field in many ways because we're all on a screen. I'm not on stage here and you're not back here. We're all together. We're all on one field. So those are just some of my thoughts on how the pandemic has affected inclusion.
Okay. Now, let's see here. What can each of us do to drive diversity across teams, and organizations of a company if we're just starting out, or maybe we've been in the private sector, or maybe we're an entrepreneur? What advice would you give us to include diversity across all teams, women and youth, together?
That's a great question. Let's take it from the place of a founder or an entrepreneur. Those key hires you make in the beginning, those are critical. And I think oftentimes, if we're honest with ourselves, many of us are in self-segregated networks. So we love employee referrals. We love when people refer their friends and family, but you have to also ask yourself, is the team that you're building looks like you, acts like you, and thinks like you? Well, then it's really easy for me to say I'm an inclusive leader, right? Wow, Mita's an inclusive leader, but her entire team looks, acts, and thinks like her. And so I think that's where, hiring is a real moment to start thinking about, taking the time to think about, here's the job description, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. And other than just who you know, take the time to put the role out there into the universe, onto LinkedIn. Ask people you know who know people, and just get to know people for their skills and talent, so that you can help with diversity of representation in your organization. And that's true for large organizations as well. If you're starting out in a larger organization, I would ask the questions. I would ask, do you have a chief diversity officer? Do you have a DE&I strategy? What does the CEO think? What does the C-suite think? Start to ask all those questions. And I don't care what level you are, you can impact the inclusion agenda. If you have a video you're making, think about a diverse supplier you can bring in. If you are hiring, ask for a diverse slate. Work with recruiting and say, I want a diverse slate of candidates. And then finally, I always say, if you're in a talent planning session and there's a promotion that people are talking about, and let's say that my name comes forward and they say, oh yeah, Mita would be great for that promotion, but you know what? She just had a baby. So I don't think she's ready. Yet no one's actually taken the time to ask me. And so the check there would be, would we have that same question if Mita was a father? Would we be asking that same question?
Absolutely. And I don't think that they would. I think they would just
Yes.
automatically assume that the man can do it. He's capable of doing it because he's a man, and man, they just but for
Yeah.
us, we are questioned, and those kind of questions should never, come up in an interview or
Yes.
any type of business meeting. If they do, then you should really reach out to someone so they can, you know, help that organization do better. Now we're about to wrap this portion of the interview up, but I want you, or could you take a moment, let us know the moment that you actually found your voice. And when I say that, I mean, how did you find your voice to be a liaison for women and just their role in the economic world? How did you find your voice?
It took time. It didn't happen overnight. I'd be lying if I said there was a single moment. Wow, it happened. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
throughout my life as a marketer, building businesses, building teams, helping other people find their voice, helping myself continue to find my voice. It's not a check the box. And there will be things that happen in your life that you'll feel setback. There'll be grief and loss and setbacks, and that you will feel like you're being put on mute again. And so don't let that happen. Try to continue to fight to find your voice in spaces and places. And when you find your voice, empower others to do the same. That's really important. So that's one of my missions in life now. Now that I feel like I can express myself and speak my truth, I want to do that for as many people as I can. And so I invite you to follow me on LinkedIn and send me messages. I'd love to connect with any of you who are listening today.
Yes, and I feel like this conversation that we're having with we're strong women, that we're bringing that to people and women in Africa, so that they can see an example of how you can overcome, how when you're faced with challenges, and who to reach out to. I think that the audience has learned a lot about, using their voice in a way where if they're not able to say it personally, then they can reach out to other people who may be in a higher position that can help,
Yes.
or even using the internet, Zoom, and all of the streaming platforms that we have. LinkedIn is a very good one. You've mentioned that several
Yes.
times. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I use it for everything. You can search it. You can search different topics, and it'll pull up people who you can connect with. So I do love that platform. And as a final takeaway, um If you want to be an ally, but you don't know where to begin, what can you do as an individual today to be in support of women and youth and inclusion?
Yeah, if you want to be an ally for women and youth, start educating yourself. You don't have to ask a woman what it means to be anti-sexist or a woman of color what it means to be anti-racist. You can Google it, right? So I think that there is a responsibility on allies to educate yourself. There's so much material out there in the world today. And then also start to build meaningful relationships with women and youth in your life, and to get to know them on a more deeply personal level, so that you can understand as an ally how you can be of service to them. That's critical.
Absolutely. And then the last thing, if you had to encourage a woman today, or even the youth, let's speak to the youth. If you had to encourage the youth today, because we were young once, right? What would you say to them, just to encourage them, and then we'll end with that.
Yeah, this is for everyone. This is what I would have said to my younger self. Do it afraid. Do it afraid. I spent too much of my life scared about people would think of me, or judgments, or if I'm doing the right thing, or if I'm doing the right thing. Life is too short. Do it afraid.
Do it afraid. Well, thank you so much, Mita Mallick, for coming on here and discussing and speaking with us all on today. We appreciate you. Can you let us know where you can be found, your social media handles?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you just look my first name and last name up, I'm on LinkedIn, and that's my primary platform where I like to connect with individuals.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
speaking.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you all for still tuning in. If you haven't already, please like and share this broadcast with youth and women who would love to hear what we're speaking about on today. We're going to shift into the actual programming, where we are speaking about youth and women and inclusion. We do have a panel of guests who are going to go ahead and speak on this topic. And I do see the other host coming on. Alara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It was such an amazing conversation. I didn't even want it to stop. I was like, could we just continue this conversation? It was so
It was
enlightening. Thank you so much, Muti, for joining us. It was amazing. And I could see the comments. People were like, this is amazing. We should continue this. And I'm like, yes, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
I love the fact that we can sit here today from all parts of the world and come together to have a conversation about things that are maybe as we know, that's why we're speaking about it today, because it is an issue and something that's ongoing. But when you feel empowered, when you feel encouraged, you're bound to do the impossible, right? You're bound to step out and go for what you know, because you're getting knowledge of a thing. And so now that we have the knowledge, let's go ahead and learn about more of what's actually happening with youth inclusion. So I'll go ahead and let you take over this part, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So hi everybody, my name is Alara Bergana, and as you know, it's today is the International Youth Day, and to proceed with this conversation, we're having a panel session, and some of the panelists are here already, and we would be continuing right about where we stopped with the topic youth in power, youth inclusion, youth and women inclusion in decision making. A seat at the table is not enough. And so I'm just going to go ahead to invite the panelists. We have Ibrahim SSC. Hope I got that right. Ibrahim SSC. Hello, good day. Thank you for joining us. And then we also have Mr. Peter Atsu. Hello, good day.
Good day.
Good day. Thank you for joining us. And we also have Mr. Angus Nasiri. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We also have some panelists that were waiting to join us backstage, so I think we can proceed with the conversation. I'll just introduce the panelists that we have right now. So I'm starting from Mr. Ibrahim. So Mr. Ibrahim is a young, dynamic African known for his passion and education in community service and humanitarian assistance. He is an outspoken personality on social justice and peaceful coexistence between communities. His voice and efforts for empowerment and communities doesn't stop at his birth country, but all through the continent. So, I mean, we're having a lot of young people that are diverse. So welcome, Mr. Ibrahim. And then I'll also be reading the profile of Mr. Peter. A minute. So Peter is Peter Atsu Anianyo. Please pardon me if I didn't pronounce that right. Peter is born in Penny, a town in Ketu, north of Ghana. He has completed his basic education in 2013 and enrolled in senior high school, where he offered the general science course and completed in 2016. He has worked with Ghana Web as their ultra revenue correspondent and launched his own online news website, the Ghana Vanguard, in 2020. Though he's an IT path, he has vast interest in digital media and African history and politics. So amazing. So just go straight into the topic at hand. I would like that starting from you, of course, you, Mr. Ibrahim. I would like that you just talk about the theme for today, from your experience, from your point of view. What do you think about the topic of conversation for today, which is obviously Africa's youth involvement, because I'm talking to you as a youth and from your experience in the decision-making process. A seat at the table is not enough.
Let me begin by thanking the organizers from the executives of the Global Partner. And also let me thank all of the fellow panelists that are here with us. And I can't have my admiration for the speaker that was just done with the speaker, her speech right now. And to begin with the topic, I can say I am a Gambian, Pan-African who was born and raised in the Gambia, but I was in the East Africa for the past 6 years. And that's where I've been. So in Sudan, in particular in Kenya, with my involvements include South Sudan and also parts of Tanzania and Somalia, you go on. But as a youth of the continent, especially when the youth that are from the Pan-African perspective of it.
I'm sorry to cut you short, sir. Please, I would like all the panelists to turn on their videos so that we can continue. Sorry about that, sir. You can continue.
Okay, so as I was saying, youth, especially when we're talking about youth from the Pan-African perspective, because I always say that it is no longer an option for us to be people that ascribe to the Pan-African mentality, because it's simply the one unifying ideology that can unify all people of African descent at home and abroad for the benefit and in the total emancipation and liberation of the country. So when we talk about the youth, the theme that we have today, I for one don't even entertain that people try to remove women as their own entity, because to my view is women to be the decision making, especially a young woman, it's no longer an option. It is not even a choice that we are to make, because we're talking about a group of people that made the largest part of our population in the continent. And empowering these people, it means empowering the continent. Because when we talk about, I've been, last year by this time I was in Sudan, around the Darfur areas, and you could see the people that benefit the most from the service where we've been given were women. But equally, when you look at the victims and the isolation and the dehumanization that are people that are facing this problem, it's equally women. And it's a problem for us sometimes, some of us that are privileged to be in these platforms. We can sit on the table discuss certain things, but it is not the reality of the women that are on the ground suffering. So unless we are to connect ourselves to the people on the ground, then our voices will be harder than the way it is right now. Because politicians in our countries can only say, we don't listen to the youth. But once the power of the youth are coming from, it is coming from the background, the indigenous people of the society. This is a force that no politician cannot avoid. And because the reason why I am speaking from this perspective is some of us that are in the universities get a privilege to be educated. We seem to distinguish ourselves under the masses of our people. And this is where anybody that can marginalize or refuse to listen to the voices of the youth can understand that we only have our voice, but there's no force behind us. But once we are able to connect ourselves to the people we are speaking for, that's the force that we come up with. And the Afrocentric part of this, as I always say, when we talk about women, inclusion, and the youth in general, I've been privileged also to be fellowship in the fellowship programs, be it Yai, Mandela. Okay, the youth leadership advocate and teach our youth in these platforms sometimes are very detrimental to the Afrocentric views when it comes to leadership.
Okay, sorry to cut you short, sir. Mr. Ibrahim. So, I would like every panelist to contribute to the topic at hand. But from what you were saying, I could hear you kind of reiterated what the keynote speaker had said about community and about we coming together and about empowering the women and empowering the youth. And from what you said earlier about the private sector, so coming from what the keynote speaker said about private sector's involvement in giving the youth opportunity, and that was one of the ways that we can empower them. So I'm just going to go the next speaker and ask. So a panelist joined. I would like to introduce Mr. Angus. So Mr. Angus just joined while we were speaking, and he is. I'm so sorry. Yeah, he is an executive director of Kugonza Uganda, women and girls child activist who is working tirelessly to prevent teenage pregnancy and raise awareness through the ground training, virtual and physical workshops, campaigns, and among many other things. Welcome. So good to have you here with us on this panel. And also we have Fisty. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry about that. Fisty Kim Kaur, and he's a Cameroon-born descendant from the Kitari tribe in Western Highlands, and he's an economist and the Pan-African practicing journalist in a chapter representative of the GPAN Cameroon. So we're so good to have you join our conversation. It's just kicking off from the conversation, Mr. Angus, this question is to you because of your involvement with child and with girls' rights activism and girls' education, and sometimes you said prevention of teenage pregnancy. So I would like you to talk about that, but from just flowing from what we've talked about, empowering women and children. And I know that some of these problems that we see face as Africans as not silencing women or not giving them the voice that is so need to participate. And just going from what the keynote speaker had said about, and questions that someone asked the other time about men sometimes silencing women, and now you actively work with teenage pregnancy and you work with women. So this is a social issue, but I think that some of the social issues can be political. So I'd like you to talk about this, but from your experience working with girls activism and just talk about the topic as women's empowerment and youth involvement in decision making. Mr. Angus.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Agas Nasasida. I'm a born of Uganda, and I come from a district called Liantonde.
I'm so sorry.
I happen to be the executive director of Kugonza Youth Impact Uganda here in Uganda, and yeah, we have had that campaign that has been on about teenage pregnancy. My brother spoke well about the private sector, and it's one thing I've always requested the government here to do. And up to today, we're even in a campaign of Swaleko. Swaleko means shy of. Most of the girls here in Uganda, I don't know if it's around there in East Africa or in your countries, most of the girls are getting pregnant because they do not have the mentorship, because they are not even involved into the decisions. I would say for our government here, we have 5 young people who sit in for the young people of this nation, whereby we are 77% of the whole country. So where does the decision come in? So I feel before you even go far, we just need to know that there is a lot that is needed for a youth to get on this desk of finding decisions. What is that one thing that we can do as the young people? And I believe because of that that has been on maybe for the last years is that it has dropped the teenage pregnancies here in the country, whereby the girls do not sit on the same table with these people who make policies. They even do not sit with our parents, I would say, just because of maybe I would say the generation gap that we have that is going on. But I feel the young people just need this. I'm so in love with the motion. The young people and the women are making decisions. It's what we want. I mean, my mother should be making a decision with my father. We have a challenge here of forced marriages. If our mothers, by the way, would be allowed to make decisions, I want to say that we couldn't have these forced marriages. But you know what happens here is that the father will stand. No, you have to get married, and in the morning you have to. Why? Because the mother is not making a decision. We the brothers cannot speak. That's the challenge we have had. And what's the call? I would even switch the call now to the private sector. What is the main cause, by the way, of now having no decisions as the young people, as the mothers, as the girls in our families? We lack empowerment. Now, when I speak about empowerment, I straight run, and go to the private sector. What's the private sector doing here? I think we should empower the girls to be the bosses of their own. I mean, I would love to see my sister get on this panel and speak, but how will my sister get on the panel when my father says, go back, go and prepare for us food? And you know, for us here in the African setting, you know, in our setting is that when a visitor is home, then girls are supposed to cook.
Oh wow. Well, I think we lost Mr. Angus there.
Yeah, I think he did. But if I can just interject,
Yeah,
he
sure.
asked, yeah, he asked, well, he said something about how can the private sector help a young person who doesn't, or what, I'm sorry, he said, what can the private sector do for people who don't have access to it?
Perfect. Yeah.
And I think that what they can do, or just in general, is to reach back. I have a mentoring program that I do. I go and I reach the youth. I pull them up because, like he said, if the mom is in the house and she's not able to empower her daughter, or she's not able to instill this strong woman in her daughter, then the man is supposed to do it, right? But a man can't really tell a woman how to be empowered, except for he can give his ideas. He can tell her right from wrong, in the aspect of what kind of man she should date. But as far as like empowerment, that does come from a woman. So if there are people or leaders even on today who have, maybe they're entrepreneurs, maybe they have their own business, or maybe they're in government, I would just suggest that you come and you reach back. We don't, you're not given a position just for yourself. You're given it because people are looking up to you. So your responsibility for the youth would be to go back and pull them up by mentorship, by introducing classes, becoming a life coach, going to the schools, making broadcasts, things like that. It's so many things that you can do today that can empower people who you can't reach by hand. So I just wanted to say that. And then youth pregnancy is an issue, and I think that's worldwide, where youth are, you know, becoming pregnant at younger ages. And I do think
Yeah.
it's because they don't have that stability in the home, you know, from the parent, from the mom and the dad. But I think that, you know, organizations, churches, having, you know, a solid foundation will help with that issue as well. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for contributing. Mr. Peter, um, so I would want to ask you about politics right now. What do you think that from the statistics, from what we've all been saying, we know that the youth are the majority, and in the entire world, the youth are the majority, and how do we get them involved in politics, and not just in the level that, um, like the theme of the theme of the program says today, a seat at the table is not enough. Not just the office where we say, oh, just you are the special advisor on youth affairs, but how do we really get to how do we get into politics? How do we get into decision making as young people? Really, what do you think it takes right now in Africa right now?
Okay. I would first of all like to thank the leadership of Global Pan-African Leadership Center for giving me this opportunity. I think the exclusion of young people or the youth in decision making in Africa should have no excuse. Our leaders should have no excuse for the exclusion of youth in decision making. This is because, as we all know, the youth make about almost 60% of the Africa population, and they are about 25 years old. So you can just imagine the number of youth, people who are below 25 that we have in Africa. So if we make decisions in politics, let's say policy decisions, and then we exclude the youth, how are we going to arrive at a better policy, a policy that will target the youth, a policy that will be of beneficiary to the youth? So it is very important that we always, our leaders include the youth in decision making. It shouldn't be that they'll just give them let's say, as you said, somebody will be a director or something like that. But when it comes to the actual decision making of an organization, they'll not call. No, that particular person should also be called to the table so that he or she will also give his or her opinion about the situation at hand. So that is all I can say for now.
So, but like, if we're not being called to the table, and we say, like, the theme of today's session is, we're not being called to the table, and we shouldn't be, because you're making the bulk of decision affects us. Where we are right now as a continent, with the poor, with poverty and the employment rate, it affects us. So the decision making process affects us more because we're in the majority and we're not being called to the table. I think, should I throw it open to any member of the panel that wants to go for that? So we're not being called to the table, and we need to be active. We know we need to actively be part of decision making, because it affects us more than majority of the population, affects us more than people that make the decision. So how do we go about it? Is there someone that wants to go for it on the panel, or should I come back to you, Mr. Ibrahim?
Exactly, I can't agree with Brother Mo. And this is the question everybody's been asking: why are we being called to the table? And I started recently. I started revisiting the post-African independence Africa. And what I started doing was to check different African countries, the realities on the ground. Let's say Nigeria as a case study. When one in 1960s Nigeria, you look at young people such as General Kaduna Nzogu, disagree with these people, but they were in their 30s, 20-something years. And they felt the responsibility that they are not supposed to be invited in the table, even though the history may judge some of them wrongly. But you could see the spirit in elsewhere in Africa. You could see other countries such as the guy that used to tell you, I write what I like, in Southern Africa. You see, Steve Biko was not waiting to be called to the table. And this is what I concluded, that for us to be able to be called to the table now, what we must do as youth, that all of us as young people of the continent must be financially woke. We need to get financial literacy, all of us should be able to create creative and be able to do something for ourselves, because we understood the reality on the ground that you need to be able to carry some weight in order to be called.
Exactly.
Like I was just rushing from some office work, coming back to the office. The taxi driver that was bringing me back to the office, I told this brother, I have to engage him in a conversation. What do you do? What are you doing? How much are you earning per month? And I started giving him options in life that if he followed those principles and become financially disciplined, what he could be able to do for himself in 5 years' time. And once we as a youth have been able to put table, because you can't only be called to the table, we have to understand the reality on the ground. This is when you ask my comrades in Kenya, in Tanzania, in elsewhere, Botswana, they will tell you that it's not about what is right. They know what is right for our continent. The people that you're talking about, if you go to South Africa, not only Julius Malema knows what is good for South Africa, but it's about what us can put on the table and someone else who is making us do those decisions. When you come to my country, I spend only 4 months in the Gambia for now. But you understand the direction the country is going. Anybody with clear conscience cannot accept it. But it's someone else who is pulling the trigger somewhere. Me and people like myself are not being able to come up with that. So it's us. There are some points I can make. All of us as youths, especially the advocate, must be financially woke. We need to be able to do for ourselves, for our financial issues. And we need to be able to read Africa, because you cannot read the solutions of Africa from foreign theories and foreign books. If you are an African leader, you must be able to visit the books written by Walter Rodney. You must be able to visit when Nkrumah was taken out of power. The books he wrote, he points there. You need to be able to learn from Nkrumah. Because without doing this, we cannot have any direction. We are people that have been oppressed for 400 years straight. We have no records.
So, Ibrahim, I totally agree with you. I think that we have to be leaders in our sphere, and if we have to lead from a place of information, we have to, first of all, learn our history. We cannot learn the history that has been given to us. We have to know what we have to change our mindset. I feel like I totally get what you're saying. What I'm getting from you is that there first has to be a mindset change, and we have to be empowered in the way that we're self-sustaining. Because most of the time we see that poverty has been used as a tool to keep people. So you see, youth are they're used as pawns in the hands of people in power. But what you're saying right now is that we need to be empowered and we need to stick together. Mr. Fisi, I'm so sorry about this. I hope I get pronunciation of your name. Fisi Kenok. I'm so sorry. Mr. Fisi Kinko. Yeah, Kinko. So thank you for joining us. And I feel like at this point, I just want you to contribute to the conversation, but I want you to take it more from the side of innovation. Like what Ibrahim was saying the other time, we need to be innovative. We need to think of new ideas. And I'm a legal practitioner. I believe solely that when the private sector, because we keep saying private sector should come and they need to empower people, they need to take people at their level. But I think that if we as young people are innovative, we take up solutions in our industries, at the end of the day, the policies makers will come to us. They'll be like, okay, so you're trying to solve the problem in transportation, and you're doing a damn good job, and you're bringing investors. So I will have to come to you and say, okay, let's let's do this. Let's have a discussion at the end of the day. So I would like you to talk about what do you think, how do you think we as youths can be innovative? We as youths can, um, I'm tired of being invited. We know that we've been trying to get a seat at the table since the 90s. Now we're talking about breaking the table and building a new one and inviting them to come and meet you. So what do you think about that? And how do you think we can do that? I mean, you're a journalist, and I would like you to share some of your opinions from your experiences and try to drive this conversation forward from there.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being with you on the broadcast. Talking about innovation, empowering youth, and you're asking us to be innovative. We have to begin from somewhere. We're not just going to get up someday and say we want to be innovative. We have to recognize, we have to acknowledge where we come from and accept where we are coming from before we engage in that. Yeah. I hope you're understanding me. We are in Africa and we are facing a very, very, very big problem of bad governance almost everywhere. They don't give the opportunities, like in the country where I am, they don't give the opportunities for you to create or to begin something. The taxation system is very bad. Yeah. So what we need to do is, like a brother said, a comrade said, the government and the political systems are using poverty as a tool to maintain the people subdued under them. So we need to begin from somewhere, acknowledging where we come from and trying to call on our brothers and sisters. Let them acknowledge where we are coming from. We have everything. We have everything that the world needs. Africa has everything that the world needs. But we are the last when they start classifying people. It pains us. It's really hurting. So if we can acknowledge where we come from and go back to our roots and make peace with our ancestors, I think from there, they will give us a way that we can take over this power. We will take over power and make the laws that will favor everyone. You getting me? Yeah. Then youth need to come back together and put youth into the law, into the decision-making bodies. Let youth go into the parliament and make this law that will favor. Because here now, yeah, we want to be innovative. I want to be innovative. But what is there when I'll begin something, just the taxation system that will come, that they will bring to me will kill every dream I am having. Just the taxation system will kill every dream I'm having. So we need to come back and make sure that we send youth to go into these decision makings. And how do we need to do that? That's a mechanism we need to really develop. How do we need to do that? Because we have the ideas, we have the zeal, we know that, yeah, we want, but how do we then do it? That is what we really need to go into research and see how do we do it and make sure we implement what we have to do effectively. Because if we say, yeah, we need to be innovative, we give the kind of measures of or the domains in which we need to innovate, without a mechanism, how do we do it with the bad governance we have? Because that's a major problem we are facing. How do we do it? You're with me?
Yes, I'm with you. So, can I pose this question? Because I hear, a lot of you, or all of the panelists, each have their own individual thing that they do, that they specialize in everything. And so you're asking, how can we do that? Is there a way? And I'm not, please excuse me if I'm sounding ignorant, but is there a way for all of you to come together as one, you know what I mean, and build something that the young people will be able to sustain and elaborate on, as far as like you know, as far as like having innovative creations that the youth can do that can bring them into the political realm, or maybe having the millennials being entrepreneurs, having entrepreneurial opportunities, or is that available? And anyone can answer, not just anyone can answer that question.
All
Yes.
right.
Okay. If I
Okay.
may. Okay, from side, what I started doing internship programs for young people, because I feel the beginning of it has to come with fighting the ignorance. So I normally recommend 5 books for young people in the continent. That these are 5 books I believe all of us need to be able to start up a foundation for ourselves. Because for us to be able to communicate, we need to get to a certain level. All of us can, which I normally do. This book, if I may mention, the one is for Chancellor William, the Black Civilization. This is how
I'm sorry, can we, I do apologize. Can we mute our devices if we're not speaking just so we can hear? I do apologize. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I normally recommend 5 books for young people, because people always ask me, why do you start with book? And it normally works for myself, and it works for the people that I've been mentoring since I started this, especially in a place where you could imagine I've been in Sudan for 5 years. And this is a place where anything African is mostly not entertained, even though it is a Black majority. So I tell people, go read the book by Chancellor Williams. This is called The Destruction of Black Civilization. It teaches you who we are as people. It puts this pride in you that whatever you get ventured in, you as a person, you are equal like any other human being, that you have all the things, even though we've gone through so much. And the second book I normally recommend for them to read is How Europe in the Undeveloped Africa. Walter Rodney. It teaches you the economic mechanisms that was used by the Africans before, what was used to sustain us as people, and what is the reality on the ground. Why is it no longer working? It puts lots of things in you, and for us to be able to put ourselves down to the level of our people, in order not to see ourselves as being twos, as or being superior, because some of us from the low backgrounds, or you find out some of our comrades from the medicine, we sometimes think of being better than our people that we're leaving behind. So when you read a book called The Miseducation of the Negro, it teaches you why you're thinking this way, and you come back to this 4th book that I normally recommend. It is called The Edge of Chaos by Dambisa Moyo. Why democracy is failing us. So this and the last book I normally recommend is by Nkrumah himself, the stages of imperialism. So once people build a family as youth, we understand now who we are. Where are we coming from? The circumstances that are there for us. And then we started introducing you financially, that you must, in order to fit in, to be able to find support, because we lose most of our companies along the way as we grow. Some of them are carrying. Why make that money of nobody can buy it? So this is the approach. It worked for me, and it worked for
I do apologize. There's a lot of noise. Can we mute, please? Can everybody mute? I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, there.
So the reason why I went back to this level is to understand from the independence days of Africa, because the only problem we have right now, it is not about the tribal issues we hear from the Gambia, or Senegal, from Nigeria, the Hausas and the Yorubas and the Igbos, or to Kenya, between the Kikuyus and the Luyas and the Kambas, or you go to Southern Africa, but between the San people and the Zulu people. It's not, that's not the enemy. The enemy is here. Poverty is our enemy. The enemy is mortality, is our people dying from our hospitals. The enemy is about we being underdeveloped by everybody else. So that's the enemy. The tribal difference is how we have. So once we are educated, we are able to understand and see the vision for ourselves. So we can remain diverse people of continent, but we have a common reality. That is the poverty, that is HIV/AIDS, that is imperial forces in our midst, that is we've been taken advantage of. And this is the point. I may give opportunity to some of my comrades to comment.
Well, thank you. I think let me be. That's of me personally.
Hello.
Mr. Angus, I thought
Oh,
you were.
am I on now?
Yes, you
Am I
are.
on?
Yes, you are.
Praise God. Yeah, the question was simply, to me, I think we just need to now think of how do we partner up together. If we anyway want the best Africa, it's no longer an Africa of one person. No, let's think of partnership. That's SDG number 17 here. Because if anyway there is a challenge in Zambia, be it business ways, and I'm here in Uganda, and anything from Nigeria can be sold here in Uganda, how do we work together? My challenge here is always seeing this the mindset. Oh, I'm sorry about everything. Hello?
Hello, I can hear you. I think your connection, it just, but I can hear you now.
Well, I think I was letting us know of what we can do, which I can simply call it as a coalition. It's good we are on this platform and we are speaking about the young people making decisions. Look, our brother shared the 5 books. How many people are going to access this? Now it needs a coalition of people. Think of where is the next Africa. I don't know if you have read about the Agenda 2060 of the African Union. Can the young people know of where we think the Africa is going to be? And now, for us to have a best solution, it needs a coalition. What do we mean? What do I mean by a coalition? I personally do SDG number 3. My minds are all switched to good health and well-being of the citizens here in Africa. So I would have someone who is speaking about maybe technology. I see he's more of the book reading. That's quality education. If we speak about quality education, then the fact that our brother here is well versed with education, then he has to come with us who are speaking about good health. Then someone who is speaking about climate action in Africa. If we need the best climate here, we just need to speak about climate. Then someone in climate is going to join someone with health. So I feel it needs a coalition. In that the 17 SDGs that have been on, they have to be embraced, and we know how are we going to work together. How can we achieve this? Can we even have a target now? Can we have a study on how we can do this? Can we zero down to one country in Africa and think of how do we curb this mainly. We have had the challenge of HIV that has been here in Africa for some good time, and when you read those books, then this comes out. But I feel the young people are just left out. If the young people themselves can stand and say, no, look, HIV must stop, what does it need now? He is doing well. I would take him as someone who is leading us through education. He's going to write all the articles. He's going to write everything concerning HIV in our African setting. Because I personally would want to read my language, and I believe in that African setting. When we communicate in the African setting, people are going to understand. Not that everyone understands English. Yeah, it's good that we understand, but then how do we now change the perspective of the young people? Truth be told, if you come to Africa or if you come to Uganda, you guys in the US, yeah, someone feels loved. You mean this is our very own. So I feel it just takes that gratitude of we the young people who are here on this platform anyway, of we the young people who are watching us online, that it's our role. There's no one who's going to speak about Africa. There's no one who's even going to tell you that teenage pregnancy is bad. Or they tell us use condoms. In normal sense, in the African setting, did we have sex at early age? No. But condoms are on. So whose mandate is it to have this say? It's my mandate as an African, as a Ugandan, to come and say, you know what? Africans, Ugandans, East Africans, it's high time you understand that HIV is bad. It's high time that you now think of where are we going to go. So to me, my submission and my opinion is we just need a coalition, working together, coming together for the Africa we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from one more person on how we all can work together?
Yeah, I really think we need a coalition like the comrade said. And this is for the United States of Africa to really take this serious and make sure that we create political parties in each country. This is a long-term program. It's not something that we are talking today to see the results tomorrow or in 5 years. Let the United States of Africa see how they will work with young people and create political parties for United States in Africa in each country. We can begin with, for example, like Ghana today, and make sure that they have a position, the party has a position in the lawmaking house. Then we switch to the next country. And why not if the party take over power Ghana one day, and the party take over power in Ethiopia one day, and the party take over power in South Africa one day? What do you think? That is how we will come together now, because this is a party that has the same ideology all over. Because why did almost all our heroes that we praise today fail? Because almost all of them failed, like Gaddafi, the Thomas Sankara, the Kwame Nkrumah. All of them failed in their agenda, because they were doing it individually and at state level. They never had a uniform agenda, that each country was having the same agenda. They could buy the other person's idea, but they never had the same agenda all through. They never had same party disciplines. But if United States and of Africa can implant this seat in each and every country, and they have one party spirit, one party discipline, and that party happens to take over power tomorrow in one country, we know that we have gained a part of Africa, and there we begin now implementing our objectives, making life suitable for all Africans. And the next country that comes, they join forces and see how they will move over other countries. And by so doing, we need to empower youth, that is in entrepreneurship, and agriculturally, we need to let them go into what they can sustain their living. Because if you want youth to engage in these things and they are hungry, and we don't have the finances to hire their services, we will still fail. So we really need to empower them in that domain with entrepreneurial skills, agriculture, and all the like. Why they are doing that, able to feed their stomachs, because a hungry man will not really give the expected results. Thank you.
Can I say something over his submission?
Yes, you may. You may just make it really better.
Well, thank you, my brother, for the submission. But I want us to understand that Africa is is one of its own anyway. I thank God that I'm an African, and I bless myself for being an African. But we shall not wait for that. I mean, girls are getting pregnant. Climate action is real here in Africa. So to me, I feel I still say we just need a coalition. Now look, here in Uganda, I'm organizing the island summit. All the teens who live on the islands, can they come over to Uganda? Can we now see how does the girls on the island live? Why do we even have HIV on the island? Can we have a sense of belonging as an African girl, and know, you know what? Even if I'm living on an island, I'm not entitled to HIV. I'm not entitled to teenage pregnancy. By that, when we speak about anyway the agenda, I've read about the agenda. By the time the agenda is going to be implemented, at least there is a sense of belonging as an African. Is that we just need to know that Africa is itself. I would share with you, when I was in London and I met this African, I swear I didn't know this person, but all she said, she gave in a name that was more of my name here in Uganda. And I was like, okay, for how long have you been here? I just felt love. That's what Africa needs now. Love yourself. There's no one who's going to love you. No one is really going to love you. No one is going to solve our problems. I must say, if it's education, no one can come and tell you, you know what, you're going to do this and be this. We are brilliant. We have the ideas. The young people have the ideas. But I feel it just now needs a coalition. Now that we know that the young people also can make a decision at your age, you're ready to make a decision. So where is your decision? Bring your decision, bring your topic, bring your innovation to the rest of the young people, and know how do you now work together as Africa. I swear you could be in Germany tomorrow, you never know, or Japan or Netherlands. I might be there, or even for a cause I can be there as an African. Call me, I would look for ways of how do I get there. And that's the way we can have the best Africa as the young people. That's the way we can go to that Africa we need. As long as we love our continent, I swear things can be possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to just add something on that. Can I?
You can do that briefly. Yeah, you can.
All right. Yeah, because what the comrade just submitted now is we need to love ourselves. And you have to remember that when you are hungry, you are easily manipulated. A hungry man is very, very easily manipulated. And right now, Global Pan-Africanism Network engaged in a youth empowering program in Cameroon where we were to sponsor 5 youth, or we sponsored 5 youth to study how to transform cocoa beans into finished products like chocolate, cocoa powder, and extraction of cocoa oil, and the transformation of the processing of soybeans into soybeans milk, yogurt. Yeah, and by so doing, we are limiting the exportation of our raw materials, because that is where we have to begin. We limit how our resources are being taken out of Africa. We have to take note of that too. Let them be exploited here. That will create employment for more Africans. And once you are satisfied your field, I think you can really sit and reason on your own and choose the right thing. But with an empty stomach, you easily dance to the rhythm of the drum player. Yeah, you cannot really dance to your own rhythm. You cannot compose your own melody. You just follow any rhythm that is being played to you. You dance. So let's really think about that too. Thank you
so much. If I could interject, just as an entrepreneur myself here in the United States, no one gave me all of the answers. No one, pulled me up. I had an idea, and I said, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to do it afraid, like Mitia said. And so what I began to do is I began to do my research. I began to ask questions. So yes, we can show our youth, right? But it has to be an inner thing, not even just for youth, but for women and for everyone. It has to be an inner thing, entrepreneurship. But we have so many tools that we can get and gain from from internet, from YouTube, from TikTok, from all of these places where we can learn. I learned on my own how to write a book, how to build a business. And then after I learned those things and I learned how to make money, to fund what I'm trying to do. So I didn't wait for anyone to give me the answer or the key. I had that inner being that said, Tashana, you have to do this anyway because nobody's going to come to rescue you. And so I think once we instill that you had being empowered, which we did in the beginning of this broadcast. But now what do we use? We have the internet, you're on the internet with me right now, and maybe we can start up, learning centers where people can come in and use the internet for free, to be able to gain knowledge on how to build a business or how to make money or whatever the case may be in entrepreneurship. So that way they can use those skills. I don't think that, just I agree, with having the ideas and being one and having a coalition. But if a person isn't if a person isn't really motivated, then they're not going to do it. And I know it comes from a lack of, poverty, but I grew up in poverty as well. But I said, I don't no longer want to be this way. I can't continue to live in poverty in a city because there's nothing there for me but hurt, disease, everything that the gentleman was saying, HIV, poverty. We have those same issues here in America, but the difference or the choices is the difference in what you make in yourself. Am I going to continue to be this way, or am I going to learn what I need so I can be somebody else, or I can move to the next level? And I know, some of the resources aren't the same as here, but I know you have coalitions and other things. So how do we get to that point? How do we reach out to those people, the people that can help and pull us in, even though we have the motivation to and the willpower to want to do it ourselves? What can we do, or what can we, how can you encourage someone? I think I want to use the last couple of minutes to encourage, that young person, encourage that woman to just go out there and do it, to do it afraid, to do it when no one else is looking, to do it even though you may be denied. Of course, you're going to get a lot of no's, but when you get that one yes, that will make all the difference. I heard you say about how to turn cocoa beans into chocolate and all of that. Can we record that? Can we put that on YouTube to show? I know you can't reach everyone in your circle, but there are means to reaching other people, like this broadcast, like recording yourself, making courses, teaching people how to do these things so that they can take that free knowledge and use it for themselves, and then in turn build a business. So can I have just one of you just encourage the women and the youth to do and be?
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, you can go on. You can go.
No, just go ahead. I'll come right after you.
Oh no, just go on.
All right, comrade, thank you very much for the elaboration. But there's something here. You're comparing two different worlds. That's the U.S. and Africa. These are two different worlds that has completely two different systems: political, democracy, economic, everything. They are completely two different worlds. In Africa, some countries like where I am now, how many youths have can afford an Android phone? How many people are accessible, or what is the geographical location? If they want to bring it together, will it be up to 1,000 square meters, the area of Cameroon that has internet connection, even though it is spotted? But if they want to really bring it together, can we have 1,000 square meters of internet connection? No. These are two different worlds. How many areas, if we want to bring together, have access to electricity? There are people here that don't have electricity. To go to some villages, the routes are not motorable. To reach at some point, you have to trek. So if you want to compare Africa and the US, it can never really match. How
No, sir.
many
I don't
youth
think I
are
was.
exposed to?
No, sir.
I don't
I
think
don't.
she
I
was
wasn't.
comparing.
I wasn't
I don't think she was
comparing. I wasn't
comparing.
comparing. I just was saying, can we have something like an internet resource where people can come and learn? I didn't say I wasn't comparing US to Africa. My question was, is there a way that we can get internet to everyone through a stationized building where people can come in and learn? Not that I was comparing. I would never compare. There's no comparison happening. I'm just saying, for me, my way of becoming an entrepreneur was by learning and going on the internet. My friend, maybe one person can learn on the internet and show their friends in person. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that there was no comparison. So
All right, I
yeah,
get you now.
there was no comparison.
So yeah, to talk about that, I think what we need to go on, what we need to embark on is to go on a campaign, organize seminars, and educate youth about that and women. And in order to empower women, to my own point of view, I don't think we really need to talk back to the women. Let's talk back to the men and the people that do marginalize women and the girl as a, let me just put it, the female sex. We need to talk back to the men that do marginalize them, that look at them like second beings. They look at them like, in Africa, there's a popular say that a woman's place is in the kitchen, which means she is just to serve in the kitchen like a cook for the husband and the family. You understand? We really need to talk back to them. Let them understand that once you make your woman happy, you will have a peaceful home, because every society begins from a home. If you can make your woman happy, if you can please your woman and give her the freedom she deserves, I think by so doing, we are empowering them. We bring them close when we are making decisions. We don't just make decisions. We don't just decide and go and tell them that this is what you have to do or that. Let us hear from them. Let us encourage the men to give a listening ear and bring the women closer. Let them take part in the decision making. And by so doing, we'll have a very peaceful society, and we will move on effectively and efficiently. That's
Okay,
all.
thank you very much. Thank you. In a way, to kind of wrap the conversation up, thank you to Sina, what she said about doing it afraid. That was what I was going to even use to wrap up the conversation, because like we've said, we need a coalition, we need a community, we need to come together. And I think that from what everybody has said right now, what we need to do is focus on being leaders at where we are. So being problem solvers, being solution providers at where we are at our levels. So you said something about there not being Android phones at some places. Well, it's beyond that. Beyond that, it's the problems you can solve them. Change your mindset, do that. So I feel like what we're saying, the way to wrap up this conversation, is that we all, as young people, as women, we need to have a leadership mindset. We need to have a solution mindset, and obviously then go and begin to collaborate. I think that we're going to begin to make tables. I mean, they're not going to invite us to tables. We're going to make tables at different places, in businesses, in education, with healthcare, and we as leaders are going there and we're just making tables. I'm using tables as an analogy for decision making and problem solving. And so it starts with doing it afraid, like Mitzi had said and Shana had said just now. It starts with doing it afraid. It starts with saying, okay, there's a problem there, and I'm going to solve it. And what Angus has said about love, we just loving one another. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm trying to wrap up conversations that we're having and trying to make a very, very solid point from it. And I think that's been engaging. People were talking. We had comments about finance and stability, and a lot of what we're saying, people resonate with it. And I think that this the Global Pan African Leadership Center is doing an amazing job. And just starting from there and having conversations like this is a good place to start. I mean, I'm going to leave this place, going to read some of those books that Ibrahim mentioned earlier. So with that, we will bring this conversation to a close. Tutuna, do you have any want to say last words? Everybody, do you have any last words? if there are no last words, thank you so much, and happy International Youth Day. Thank you very
Thank you very much.
much. Thank you
Thank
for
you
joining.
very much.
Thank you so much for joining us and coming on and giving your input. I do appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Bye.
Bye bye.
Mhm.